The mysterious encounter. The Frontier space station was not a friendly place. It floated far away from the rich planets at the edge of the galaxy. The lights always flickered, the air smelled of metal and smoke, and people here trusted no one. Traders, smugglers, and broken soldiers all came to this place, each carrying secrets. Among them lived a human named Daniel. He was not rich, not powerful, and not famous. He was just an engineer who fixed machines for small money. His life was quiet, maybe even empty, until one strange night when everything changed. Daniel was walking back to his small room after a long day. The corridors of the station were dark and full of shadows. Normally, he kept his head down and ignored whatever he saw, but that night, something caught his attention. He heard a sound. Not the sound of machines, not the shout of drunk traders. It was softer. A sound of crying. Daniel stopped. His eyes searched the shadows, and there in the corner near the broken lights, he saw her. A small figure sitting alone. She was not human. Her skin was pale blue, shining faintly under the weak light. Her eyes were big, glowing softly, and filled with tears. She looked young, maybe like a human child of 10 years. Her body was thin, almost starved, and she hugged her knees as if the whole world was against her. Daniel felt something strange in his chest. Pity, yes, but also fear. He had seen many aliens in his life, but never one like her. And more than that, everyone else walking by did not even look at her. They avoided her, turned their faces, and walked faster. A guard passed near Daniel and noticed him staring. The guard's voice was cold. "Don't. Leave her. She's not safe." Daniel frowned. "She's just a child." The guard gave him a hard look. "Not a child. A problem. You don't want to be part of it." Then the guard walked away. Daniel stood frozen. His mind told him to leave. This was not his business. But his heart told him something different. He could not walk away from a crying child no matter where she came from. He stepped closer. The girl noticed him and tried to shrink back into the shadows. Her eyes widened with fear, as if she expected him to hurt her. "It's okay," Daniel said softly. "I won't hurt you." She said nothing. Her lips trembled, and her eyes stayed on him, watching every move. Daniel crouched down so he wouldn't look so tall or scary. He noticed her clothes were torn, dirty, and far too big for her small frame. Her hands were shaking, and her skin looked bruised as if she had been running or hiding for a long time. "Are you alone?" he asked. Still no answer. Only silence, broken by the sound of her quiet sobs. Daniel sighed. He looked around. People were passing by, pretending not to see. It was as if she didn't exist to them. And maybe that was worse than fear, being invisible. Something deep inside him moved. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was kindness. Maybe it was simply being human. He reached into his bag and pulled out a piece of bread he had saved from dinner. He held it out. The girl stared at it, then at him. Slowly, her small hand reached out, shaking, and she took it. She ate quickly, like she had not eaten for days. "See?" Daniel said softly. "I'm not your enemy." For the first time, he saw her eyes change. The tears were still there, but now there was a spark of something else, hope, or maybe confusion. Before Daniel could say more, two men walked by and muttered to each other. "Crazy human," one said. "Helping her? He'll regret it," said the other. Daniel ignored them. His eyes stayed on the girl. "You don't have to stay here," he said gently. "You can come with me, at least for tonight. You'll be safe." She shook her head quickly, fear flashing in her glowing eyes. She pointed upward toward the stars beyond the station's walls. She whispered something, her voice so soft Daniel almost missed it. "They will find me." Her voice was broken, filled with terror. Daniel's skin went cold. Who were they? Why would anyone chase a starving child? Still, he made his choice. He reached out his hand. Then let them come. Tonight you're safe. With me. For a long moment the girl just stared at his hand. Her body trembled. She seemed ready to run at any second. But slowly, carefully, she placed her small blue hand into his. The touch was cold, fragile, but real. Daniel helped her stand. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless, like she could be blown away by the air itself. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders, hiding her from the eyes of others. As they walked together through the dim corridors, Daniel felt eyes on him. Whispers followed. Fear, anger, disbelief. But he kept walking. That night, in the space station at the edge of the galaxy, a simple human made a choice. A choice that would change not only his life but the fate of countless worlds. The girl walked beside him, silent, still afraid, still broken. But now she was not alone. And somewhere deep inside her, hidden under the sadness and fear, a power waited. A power that would soon shake the galaxy. The adoption Daniel's room on the space station was small, hardly big enough for one man. The walls were metal, scratched with age, and the ceiling light buzzed with a weak glow. Most visitors would call it a cage, but to Daniel it was home. That night, for the first time in years, he did not walk in alone. The alien girl followed behind him, quiet as a shadow. She still clutched his coat around her thin shoulders. Her eyes kept moving, studying every corner of the room like a trapped animal searching for danger. Daniel shut the door and turned to her. "You're safe here," he said. The girl did not answer. She stood near the door, ready to run if he tried anything. Daniel did not push her. He remembered how much fear had been in her voice when she whispered, "They will find me." Whoever they were, she believed they were close. He opened a small storage box and pulled out some food. Bread, dried fruit, and a cup of warm water. He placed them on the table. "Eat as much as you like," he told her. Slowly, carefully. She came closer. She sat at the table and ate, though her eyes never left him. Every movement was fast, nervous. Daniel realized then, this child had lived too long in fear. She expected pain, not kindness. After a while, when her hunger had eased, Daniel tried again. "What's your name?" The girl looked down at her hands. Silence. "That's okay," Daniel said softly. "If you don't want to tell me now, you don't have to. You can tell me later." She blinked, surprised. Most people demanded answers, but he was patient. That patience was something she had never known. The night grew colder. Daniel gave her a blanket and pointed to the small bed. "You can sleep there. I'll take the chair." Her eyes widened again, confused. Why would he give up comfort for her? Daniel only smiled, trying to ease her worry. "I snore anyway. Better for me to stay here." She did not smile, but she slowly walked to the bed. She sat on the edge, still, watching him, still unsure if this was a trick. As the hours passed, Daniel pretended to sleep in the chair. His eyes were half closed, but he watched her. She curled under the blanket, her glowing eyes open for a long time. It was clear she had forgotten how to rest. But at last, after what felt like hours, her breathing slowed. She slept. For the first time, Daniel saw peace on her face. He thought of all the fear she carried. What kind of life had she lived, that even a bed and food felt like a miracle? The next morning, Daniel went to work as usual. The girl stayed, behind in his room, too afraid to step outside. When he returned, he found her sitting quietly on the floor, holding a broken machine he had left on the table. She had opened it and was touching the wires, almost like she understood it. "You like machines?" Daniel asked. She looked up quickly as if caught stealing. She shook her head, but Daniel smiled. "It's okay. I fix machines for a living. You can help me if you want." From that day, things began to change. The girl started watching him work. At first, she only looked. Then she began handing him tools when he needed them. She was quiet, but sharp. She learned fast, almost too fast. Sometimes Daniel felt she already knew more than him, but she stayed silent. Days turned into weeks. The girl spoke very little, but Daniel began to hear small words from her, simple human words he had taught her. Food, water, safe. The first time she said thank you, Daniel's heart almost stopped. Still, the shadows did not leave. Strange things happened around her. Lights flickered when she cried. Machines broke when she became frightened. Once, when a man outside shouted too close to Daniel's door, every piece of metal in the room trembled. The girl clutched her head and whispered in a language Daniel could not understand. She was no ordinary child. Something inside her was powerful and dangerous. One evening as they ate together, Daniel leaned forward. "Listen," he said softly. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. I know you're different. But that doesn't matter. You're not alone. You're with me now." The girl stared at him, her glowing eyes wide. Then, in a broken, almost shaking voice, she whispered one word. "Father." Daniel froze. He had not expected it. His chest tightened. In that moment, the choice was no longer silent in his heart. He knew it. He had adopted her, not on paper, not by law, but by love. She was his daughter now, but far away, in the dark corners of the galaxy. Others were searching. Ships moved between stars carrying soldiers and hunters. They followed the trail of energy she left behind. They whispered her true name, the one Daniel still did not know. And they were coming closer. The secret power nights on the frontier station were never quiet. The machines hummed, traders shouted, and the sound of engines echoed through the thin walls. But inside Daniel's small room there was something different. Silence. The kind of silence that makes the heart uneasy. The girl, his daughter now, though no one else knew, sat on the bed with her knees pulled close to her chest. Her glowing eyes stared at the floor. Daniel worked on a broken tool at his desk, pretending not to notice how tense she was. But he felt it. Something heavy filled the air. It happened suddenly. The lamp on the desk flickered, then burst with a sharp crack. Sparks flew. Daniel jumped back, staring at the smoke rising from the shattered bulb. He turned quickly toward the girl. Her hands were covering her face. She was shaking. The blanket slid off her shoulders as a faint blue light grew around her small body. It was soft at first, like the glow of stars. Then it grew brighter, filling the room with strange patterns that danced along the walls. Hey, it's okay," Daniel said carefully, his voice calm but his heart racing. The girl lowered her hands. Her eyes burned brighter than ever, glowing like two suns. Daniel felt the air thicken, heavy as if the station itself was pressing down. Tools lifted off the table. Screws, wires, and metal parts floated around her, spinning slowly as if caught in invisible strings. Daniel's breath caught. This was no trick. This was power. Power far beyond anything he had ever seen. The girl gasped, clutching her chest. Her voice came out broken, almost desperate. "They will find me. They feel it when it wakes." Daniel stepped forward, ignoring the floating metal around him. He knelt by her side. "Look at me," he said firmly. "No one will hurt you. Not while I'm here." She shook her head violently, tears streaming down her glowing face. "You don't understand. I was made for this, made to destroy." Daniel froze, his mind raced. Made? What did she mean? The girl pressed her hands to her temples, rocking back and forth. The floating metal shook harder, clashing in midair. A deep hum filled the room, like the whole station's heart was trembling. Daniel grabbed her hands gently but firmly. "Listen, to me. You're not a weapon, you're a child, my child, do you hear me?" For a moment everything stopped, the hum, the shaking, the lights. The tools fell to the floor with a loud crash. The glow around her body dimmed until only her tear-filled eyes remained bright. She collapsed into his arms, trembling. Daniel held her close, his mind burning with questions but his heart only focused on keeping her safe. When she finally calmed, she whispered again, her voice so faint he almost missed it. They made me to end worlds, but I ran. I didn't want to kill, I just wanted someone. Daniel's chest tightened. He understood now why the station guards had warned him, why others looked at her with fear. She wasn't just an alien child. She was something far greater and far more dangerous. He pulled back and looked into her glowing eyes. You don't have to be what they made you. You decide who you are, and as long as I live, I'll fight anyone who tries to take that away. The girl blinked, silent, as if she had never heard such words before. Then, for the first time, she gave a small nod. But outside, far beyond the metal walls of the station, unseen forces were moving. Ships in the black void of space stirred. Their sensors picked up the faint energy pulse that had spread from the girl's outburst. Commanders leaned over glowing screens. Soldiers checked their weapons. A whisper traveled across the stars. The weapon lives. The runaway has awakened. Back. In the room, Daniel tried to keep things normal. He fixed the lamp, cleaned the broken pieces, and set food on the table. But inside, his thoughts raced. If she was right, then something was coming. He glanced at her. She sat quietly now, eating bread with small bites. Her glowing eyes were calmer, but shadows of fear still lived in them. Daniel's mind made a promise he did not say out loud. If they come, I will not give her up. Even if it costs me everything. That night, Daniel barely slept. He kept waking, listening for footsteps outside his door, for alarms, for anything. And each time, he saw her small figure curled under the blanket, glowing faintly in the dark like a fragile star. She was not just his daughter anymore. She was the key to something larger. Something dangerous, yes, but also something that could change the galaxy. And as Daniel finally drifted into uneasy sleep, one thought echoed in his mind. How long until they find us? The hunters arrive. The space station never slept. Engines roared, lights blinked, and ships came and went at every hour. But on this night, something different happened, something darker. Daniel woke to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed along the corridor outside his door. Voices shouted. The whole station seemed to shake. He sat up quickly. The girl was already awake, standing by the window, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She whispered one word, her voice trembling. They're here. Daniel felt his stomach twist. He didn't need to ask who. He knew. Outside the small window, the stars were hidden by shadows. Black ships circled the station like vultures. Their sharp edges reflected the red warning lights. These were not traders, not smugglers. They were soldiers, hunters. The intercom cracked to life. A cold voice echoed through the metal halls. Attention citizens, stay inside your quarters. Security is now under the command of the Galactic Enforcement Division. Anyone found sheltering the target will be punished. Daniel's blood ran cold. The target. They meant her. The girl pressed her forehead to the glass, her small hands shaking. They will take me. They always take me. Daniel stepped forward and pulled her away from the window. Not this time, he said firmly. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. Soldiers were already searching, metal boots on metal floors, doors opening, voices shouting. Daniel's mind raced. He had no weapons, no army, just an old engineer's brain and 2 hands. But he had something else. Will. The will to protect. The child who had trusted him. He grabbed his tool bag, stuffing in wires, a small plasma cutter, and a broken but dangerous-looking wrench. Then he turned to her. Stay close, don't make a sound. The door shook. Someone outside was scanning it. Daniel felt sweat on his neck. Go, he whispered, pulling the girl toward the maintenance hatch hidden behind his desk. Few people knew it existed. Daniel had repaired it years ago and kept it secret. He pushed the cover open, revealing a dark tunnel of pipes and wires. The girl hesitated, fear in her glowing eyes. "They will kill you if they find me." Daniel crouched, meeting her gaze. "Listen to me. You are my daughter now, and a father never gives up his child. Now move." She swallowed hard and crawled into the tunnel. Daniel followed, pulling. The hatch closed behind them just as the door to his room burst open. Soldiers stormed in, their rifles raised. The tunnel was tight and dark. Pipes hissed, steam burned, and the sound of soldiers searching echoed behind them. The girl crawled quickly, Daniel close behind. His heart pounded with every noise. They reached another hatch and slipped out into a lower corridor where the lights flickered. The smell of oil and burning wires filled the air. Here, fewer people walked, only engineers and forgotten workers, but they were not safe. A patrol turned the corner, armored figures with glowing visors. The girl gasped and the soldiers' heads snapped toward the sound. "Run!" Daniel shouted. They sprinted down the narrow hall, Daniel pulling her hand. Boots thundered behind them. Blaster fire lit the air, burning holes in the walls. Sparks rained down. The girl stumbled, but Daniel lifted her in his arms, carrying her as he ran. His lungs burned, his muscles screamed, but he did not stop. They burst into the cargo bay. Huge containers stood like towers, shadows stretching long across the floor. Daniel ducked behind one, breathing hard. The girl clung to his neck, shaking. The soldiers spread out, their voices cold. "The target is near. Scan every corner." Daniel set her down and crouched low. He whispered, "Stay here. Don't move." She shook her head. "No. If they catch you, they'll kill you. I can fight." Daniel looked at her glowing eyes. He remembered the floating tools, the shaking air, the terrible hum of power. Yes, she could fight. But if she lost control, she could destroy everything, including herself. "No," Daniel said firmly. "You are not a weapon. You are my child. Let me handle this." The soldiers drew closer. Their scanners beeped. One of them raised his weapon, pointing toward the containers. Daniel's hands trembled. He had no choice. He grabbed a plasma torch from his bag and ignited it. A bright, blue flame roared to life. It was not a soldier's weapon, but in his grip it was fire against the darkness. "Over here," he shouted, stepping out from cover. The soldiers turned, weapons ready. Daniel swung the torch, sparks flying. The first soldier stumbled back as the heat cut through his armor. The others fired, but Daniel ducked, rolling behind another crate. Bolts of plasma smashed into the metal, leaving glowing scars. The girl's eyes filled with tears as she watched. She wanted to help, but his words echoed in her mind. "You are not a weapon." Her small hands trembled. Energy began to glow faintly around her. She pressed her palms together, whispering to herself, trying to hold it back. Daniel fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. He swung the torch, dodged shots, and used every trick an old engineer knew. Steam vents, loose wires, exploding, fuel cans. Each second he bought gave the girl more time. But more soldiers were coming. Too many. Daniel fell to one knee, breathing hard. His torch flickered, almost empty. The soldiers raised their rifles, ready to end him. And then, the air changed. A pulse of energy filled the bay. The soldiers froze. Their scanners screamed. The containers rattled. The girl stepped out from the shadows, her eyes burning like twin stars. The glow around her grew brighter and brighter until the whole bay shook. The soldiers shouted, but their voices were lost in the rising hum of her power. Daniel stared, fear and pride crashing inside him. She had promised not to be a weapon, but now, to save him, she had no choice. The cargo bay was silent after the storm. Soldiers lay scattered across the floor, their weapons burned, their armor cracked. Smoke rose from broken machines and sparks rained down from the ceiling. At the center of it all stood the girl. Her small body shook, her eyes blazing like suns, glowing so bright that Daniel could hardly look at her. The air still hummed with her strange energy, a power that bent metal and froze men in fear. Daniel's chest ached as he watched her. She looked so young, yet the storm inside her was strong enough to tear worlds apart. Slowly, carefully, he stepped forward. "It's okay," he said, his voice soft. It's over now. The girl turned to him, tears streaming down her glowing face. I didn't want to, she whispered, her voice cracked with guilt. They would have killed you. I didn't want to hurt them, but I couldn't stop it. Her knees buckled and she collapsed to the floor. The glow faded, leaving only a small, shaking child who had seen too much. Daniel dropped beside her and pulled her into his arms. She clung to him, sobbing against his chest. I don't want to be a monster, she cried. You're not a monster, Daniel said firmly, holding her tighter. You saved me. You saved us both. She shook her head. They made me to kill. I was born in a lab. They gave me this power to destroy worlds. That's all I am. Daniel pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. His own eyes were wet, now not from fear but from the weight of her pain. No, that's what they told you, that's what they wanted you to believe. But listen to me. You are more than what they made you, you are more than your power. The girl stared at him, silent, her small hands gripping his shirt. Daniel placed his hand gently on her head, brushing her messy hair back. To me, you are not a weapon. You are not a curse. You are my daughter. Her lips parted in shock. Her eyes trembled, as if she could not believe what she heard. Your daughter? Yes, Daniel said without hesitation. You called me father before, and I will not let anyone take that away. I don't care what the galaxy thinks you are. To me, you are mine. For a moment, time stopped. The girl's body shook, not from fear this time, but from something she had never felt before, belonging. She buried her face in his chest again, whispering a single word through her tears. Father. Daniel held her close. He felt her heartbeat, fast and fragile, and he knew then that nothing mattered more. Not the hunters, not the soldiers, not even his own life. All that mattered was keeping her safe. But outside the bay, the station shook again. The black ships were still there. Reinforcements were landing. The girl's power had not gone unnoticed. The hunters would not stop. Daniel helped her to her feet. We can't stay here. They'll send more. The girl wiped her tears, her glowing eyes dim but steady. They'll never stop hunting me. Then let them hunt, Daniel said. We'll keep running if we have to. We'll find a place where they can't reach us. Somewhere you can be free. She looked at him, fear and hope mixing in her gaze. You'd give up everything. For me? Daniel smiled faintly. I already have, and I'd do it again. They moved through the smoke-filled corridors, avoiding patrols, hiding in shadows. The girl stayed close, her small hand never leaving his. She was silent, but inside something new was growing. Trust. At one point, they stopped in an abandoned docking bay. Daniel checked a map on his old datapad, searching for a way out. The girl sat beside him, hugging her knees. After a long silence, she spoke. Why? Why are you different? Everyone else is afraid of me. Even when I was small, even before I understood my power, they looked at me like I was poison. But you stay. Daniel put the pad down and looked at her. Because I know what loneliness feels like. I know what it's like to be unwanted, to feel invisible. And I swore, when I saw you sitting there in that station corner, that I would never let you feel that way again. Her eyes filled again, but this time, no tears fell. Instead, she gave him a small, trembling smile. The first, real smile he had seen from her. At that moment, Daniel realized something. He was not saving her anymore. She was saving him too, saving him from the empty life he had carried for years. But before the moment could last, the docking bay lights blazed red. A warning siren echoed, doors locked down. A mechanical voice announced, "Containment breach detected, target located." The girl's glow returned faintly, fear rising in her chest. Daniel stood, pulling her behind him. His eyes burned with determination. "Stay close," he said. Whatever happens, don't let go of my hand. And as more soldiers stormed into the bay, their rifles raised, the girl squeezed his hand tightly. She was no longer just a weapon. She was no longer just a child. She was his daughter. The showdown. The docking bay shook like a cage about to break. Red lights flashed, alarms screamed, and soldiers in black armor poured in from every door. Their rifles glowed with energy, their boots crashed against the metal floor, and their voices rang with cold command. Target located. Do not let the weapon escape. Daniel stepped in front of the girl, his body tense, his heart pounding. His hands were empty, except for a broken wrench he refused to drop. Against rifles and soldiers it was nothing, but against fear, it was everything. The girl clutched his arm, her glowing eyes wide. There are too many. We can't fight them all. Daniel glanced back at her. Maybe not, but we won't give up. The soldiers spread out, surrounding them. Their leader stepped forward, a tall figure with a helmet that hid his face. His voice was calm but sharp as a blade. Return the child to us, he ordered. She is not yours. She was made for war. You are nothing but a thief hiding stolen fire. Daniel's jaw tightened. She's not your weapon. She's my daughter. The leader laughed, the sound cold and metallic. Your daughter? Do you even know what she is? That thing is death itself. One day she will kill you too. Daniel raised the wrench, his voice steady even as his knees shook. Then I'll die protecting her. Better that than letting her live as your slave. The soldiers raised their rifles. Blue energy hummed at the barrels. The girl's chest tightened. She could feel the power waking inside her, rising like a storm. The air grew heavy, the ground trembled. Father, she whispered, if I use it, I might hurt you too. Daniel looked at her, his eyes fierce. Then trust yourself. Trust that you can control it. Trust that you're more than what they made you. Her eyes burned brighter, not with fear this time, but with something stronger. Hope. The leader shouted, "Fire!" Energy bolts filled the air. Daniel pulled the girl close, but before the shots could reach them, a wave of light exploded outward. The girl stood tall, her small hands raised, her body glowing like a living sun. The energy bolt struck an invisible shield around them and vanished. The soldiers froze. Their weapons screamed with overload. Some dropped them, sparks flying. The girl's voice rang through the bay, clear and strong. I am not your weapon. I am not your slave. I am not what you made me. Her power surged. Metal groaned and bent. The very air shook. A wall of pure energy burst outward, throwing soldiers across the bay. Containers toppled, alarms shattered, and the station itself seemed to cry in pain. Daniel shielded his eyes, but he did not step back. He stood with her, his hand still gripping hers. The leader tried to stand, his armor cracked. You can't fight us forever, he shouted. The galaxy will never let you live. The girl's eyes blazed. Then let the galaxy be shocked. She raised her arms and light poured from her like a river. The soldiers screamed as their weapons melted. Their ships outside shook, engines failing as her power reached into the void. But as the storm grew, Daniel saw her face twist in pain. Her small body trembled. The power was too much, threatening to break her apart. Stop, Daniel cried, pulling her close. You don't have to destroy them all. You don't have to fight like they taught you. You're stronger than that. Her glowing eyes turned to him, tears shining in the light. If I stop, they'll kill you. Daniel pressed his forehead to hers, whispering fiercely, then let me die. But don't lose yourself. Don't become what they want. Be who you choose to be. For a moment, the storm hung in silence. The energy pulsed, trembling between creation and destruction. Then, slowly, the girl closed her eyes. The light softened, the storm calmed. Instead of exploding outward, her power bent, reshaped, and wrapped around Daniel like a shield. The soldiers fired again, but the bolts dissolved against the barrier. Ships outside tried to charge weapons, but their systems shut down as if the stars themselves rejected them. The leader staggered, staring at her in disbelief. Impossible. The girl opened her eyes, glowing with calm strength. Not impossible. I choose. With one final pulse, her power surged outward, not to destroy but to push. Soldiers were thrown back through the doors. The ships outside, spun helplessly, forced away from the station by invisible tides. Then it was quiet. The girl collapsed, the glow fading. Daniel caught her, lowering her gently to the floor. Her small chest rose and fell, weak but alive. Daniel held her close, his eyes burning with pride. You did it. You controlled it. Her voice was faint, but steady. Because of you, Father. Because you believed in me. Daniel looked around, at the broken bay, at the retreating ships beyond the glass. For now they had won, but he knew it was only the beginning. The galaxy would not forget what happened here. He lifted her into his arms, whispering, "Then let them come. We'll face them together." And as the station drifted under the stars, one small human and one small alien girl stood against the weight of an entire galaxy. The shock of the galaxy. The station floated silently in space after the battle. Broken, ships drifted like dead shadows around it, and the air inside still smelled of smoke and burned metal. But deep within, in a small dark corridor, Daniel walked with the girl in his arms. Her head rested on his shoulder, her eyes half closed. The glow in her body had faded to the faintest light, like the last spark of a dying star. She was exhausted, but alive. Daniel carried her as if she were the most precious thing in the universe. To him, she was. They found a quiet chamber where the alarms had stopped. Daniel set her down gently, covering her with his coat. She blinked up at him, weak but smiling. "I didn't kill them," she whispered. Daniel brushed her hair back. "No, you chose not to. And that choice is worth more than anything." Her eyes filled with tears. "But they'll never stop coming. They'll hunt me forever." Daniel sighed. He knew she was right. The storm was only beginning, yet he also knew something else. Then let them come. They don't understand yet. But they will. Far above, the galaxy already stirred. News spread faster than light. Ships that had survived limped back to their commanders, telling stories of the child who had awakened. Soldiers spoke of an unstoppable force, yet they also spoke of something stranger. They spoke of how she had spared them. Whispers filled space stations and markets. The weapon lives. The runaway child destroyed fleets. A human protects her. But then came the part that shocked them most. She chose mercy. For years, the galaxy had feared the legend of the experiment child, the world breaker. She was supposed to be a monster, a curse born from science and cruelty. But now the story was different. Now people asked, what if she is not a weapon? What if she is something else? On one wealthy planet, leaders gathered in tall towers, their voices sharp with anger. This cannot be allowed. If the people see her as hope, they will question us, they will no longer fear us. On another, poor miners spoke in hushed voices. A human loved her like a daughter. If he can see her as family, maybe she's not the monster they told us about. Even soldiers who had once hunted her sat in silence, remembering the shield of light that had saved them instead of killing them. Some began to wonder if they had been on the wrong side all along. The galaxy was not the same anymore. Back on the frontier station, Daniel and the girl hid in a cargo ship, waiting for the engines to warm. They were running again, but this time, they were not running only in fear. They were carrying something stronger, hope. The girl sat beside him, quiet. After a long moment, she asked, "Do you think the galaxy hates me?" Daniel looked at her, his face soft but firm. "The galaxy doesn't know you yet, but it will. They'll see what I see. Not a monster, not a weapon. A child who chose kindness when she could have chosen destruction. That will change everything." Her glowing eyes searched his face. "But what if I fail?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Then we fail together. But as long as you keep choosing who you want to be, you'll never truly fail." The ship lifted slowly from the bay, shaking as its engines roared. Stars stretched out before them, endless and cold. But this time, they did not feel so lonely. The girl pressed her small hand into his. "Father, thank you." Daniel squeezed her hand. "No, thank you. You gave me something worth living for." And then, as they flew into the dark, a message began to spread across the stars. Not from leaders, not from soldiers, but from ordinary people who had seen or heard the story. They spoke of the human who had adopted the saddest alien girl. They spoke of how she had been feared, but was loved instead. And they spoke of how that love had changed everything. Soon songs were sung, stories were told. The tale of the weapon child became the tale of the child who chose mercy. The galaxy was shocked, not because she destroyed armies, but because she had chosen not to. For the first time in years, people began to believe in something greater than fear. They began to believe in love, even across stars. And so the human and the alien girl disappeared into the vast unknown, hunted still, but no longer alone. Everywhere they went, whispers followed. The galaxy is watching. The weapon has a father. Hope lives. Daniel looked at the stars ahead, his hand still holding hers. He knew the road would be long, dangerous, maybe even endless. But he also knew one truth that no army could take away. One act of kindness had shaken the galaxy, and one father's love would keep it shaking forever.